I'm on vacation every single day because I love my occupation.
I don't care. Like, I know I'll get messages all the time. Hey, do you have somebody else, Patricia, that they could speak to? They're only doing 2,000 a month, right? They'll say, I don't want to bother you with that. And I'm like, do you know that 90% of my business has come from $2,000 a month accounts that ended up saying, oh, I'm in a $2,000 a month account, but my brother owns 500 Wendy's, or they own, a $30 million a month MLM account. Never, ever, I will get on any call. I don't care if they do $5 a month. I don't care if they're starting up. I don't care what it is. I get on that phone. So, and I think everyone should be that way in every business.
Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. All right, welcome back to another episode of Millionaire Secrets. I am really, really excited. I always say that. Every episode I say, I'm really, really excited. But I really am excited because I'm here with not only a brilliant, savvy, amazing woman entrepreneur, but also a really good friend of mine who's a really important relationship because we're really good friends, but also because she's like a hugely important relationship in my business. She has so much value to offer, and I'm just excited we got her on the show. Her name's Patricia. Patricia, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here, Jeff.
So welcome to Millionaire Secrets. As I know you know, you're a fan of the show, but you know we're here to basically pull down all the glitz and glamour behind or in front of who we really are. We being people that have gotten our butts kicked long enough to emerge successful. And we want to connect with people that have that as an aspiration and hopefully provide them inspiration about like what it takes and that it's real and how to make it real. So if you're comfortable, I just want to get right into the real, raw, not even always pretty truth of like how someone like you becomes someone like you. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so for a little bit of context for everyone, I know Patricia. She was introduced to me at a really critical time in my business growth pattern when I'd gotten pretty good at a few things. I'd gotten pretty good at like selling and making money, I guess, for lack of a less crude way to put it. And one of the things about making money or selling is you actually have to be able to collect money. It's kind of a big deal. And when you're starting out, a lot of people don't think about that. They just kind of assume like, well, of course, if I make a sale, if somebody wants to pay me, I can get the money. They can Venmo me or something, right? But you get to a level pretty quickly with online or even offline commerce. But in my case, online commerce, like if you're trying to collect hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, particularly through credit cards, like you can't Venmo. If you try to set up a Venmo account and sell a $500 product 47 times a day for a month, Venmo is going to not let you keep doing that, right? And so you enter into this labyrinthine world called merchant processing, payments processing, and you meet all these people that pop up once they know that you represent a revenue opportunity and that money is circulating around you, and they tell you all kinds of stuff and they promise you all kinds of things. And if you're me, you learn the hard way over literally a decade that this world is can be a very self-serving world. And I thought was exclusively a very self-serving world. And I got very jaded about it until I met Patricia. And she was introduced to me by someone who said, listen, if you want to grow a business from, a couple $1 million a year to a couple dozen $1 million a year or beyond, you've got to have a relationship like this in your life. And that was the relationship that I now have with Patricia. And I can tell anyone listening to this that you're going to get to a point, if you get to a point where you need to know someone like Patricia, A, good on you, congratulations on the growth, and B, Patricia's the right person for you to know at that stage. But in the meantime, as I've gotten to know her, she's just a baller entrepreneur. And so I don't think you need to wait until you're ready to collect, $5 million in a month to meet Patricia. I think everybody needs to meet Patricia now. And then, so therefore, here she is. Patricia, that was like a long-winded story intro, but like now you know what you mean to me. And, but I want to know, even selfishly, like, how did you get where you are? How did you become that person that someone like me gets introduced to?
Sure. So, I mean, I think the introduction says enough, and we should just end the interview because I can't ever describe myself as nicely and good as you have.
You're going to get a recording of this, so feel free to use
Perfect. So, I know, Jeff, you and I have talked a lot about our past and our history and everyone. And I have conversations all the time with even other people that are in our industry saying, oh, well, you kind of stepped in good luck. You were in the right place at the right time. And really I hear that at nauseum, right? The number of times that people say that to me, and I'm like, you have no idea, where I started. And for me, and I think we've had this discussion even about, back in high school, right? I was an awful student. And the reason I was a terrible student was because I had ADD. I could not sit in a classroom. I could not listen to teachers talking to me. It was something that it was impossible for me to do. And I did really, really bad in school. And I had a teacher that actually told me, she said, you need to drop out and go be a waitress, because at least you could be running around the school or running around a restaurant. And, at that point I was like, if I have to go work for somebody, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. If I have to be in an office and I have to go, listen to somebody, there's no way I'm going to be able to be a successful person. So, in one sense, so after high school, I ended up working for the first company to do the first transaction online. It was actually a company called Internet Billing Company out of Florida. Now you can say, yes, did I get lucky in the sense that I worked for an internet company, one of the first internet companies? Yes, I worked in customer support. I got fired from customer support because I was terrible on the telephone. But what they did was they gave me the opportunity to start cold calling anybody who had a website online. So one of the first emails that I sent from my AOL account was to starwars.com because they had a URL, starwars.com up there. And I said, all right, this looks like a good account to email. And they ended up flying me out to Marin County. I helped Star Wars launch their subscription website. And from there, it kind of just started snowballing. I realized that I definitely did not have to go to college, that the internet was where I was going to be. But along the way, so I ended up over the course of about 5 years, I ended up closing Major League Baseball, Time Magazine. I helped Time Magazine digitize all their archives, NASCAR implement their subscription billing. And I was closing all of these really major high profile accounts. And yet I was making $28,000 a year. So
how old were you when this was happening?
it would have been, I probably was like 23 years old.
And how many people worked for Internet Billing Company?
I was their fifth employee at the time. So in 98, I was their fifth employee. I want to say I was about their fifth employee.
How many people ended up working there? How many people would you say came through?
250 ended up working.
And they all went on to make millions and millions of dollars and be major players in payments, right?
No.
Oh, so you mean it's not just about being in the right place at the right time. You actually have to be something special about you.
Correct. Okay. So here is the turning point. And I really owe this to my family for this one, because so we had a choice. So internet billing was all adult. It was 100% adult websites. That's how the company started, because that's all that was billing online. That company did $800 million in year two in subscription billing. When the management team wanted to go public, they asked me to go get away from adult and go start after the mainstream. So,
and for anybody that doesn't know, adult, you mean porn?
Yes, correct. Okay, right. Adult websites, that's where it all started. Chris Malick back in the day, like the beginning of the internet.
Right.
And, here I thought I was making such a great decision going and doing this mainstream stuff. I mean, I was closing monumental mainstream accounts that iBuild was putting all over their website, Star Wars, this, and yet I'm watching all of the guys and girls that were on the adult side, all of a sudden buying brand new Mercedes, buying all this thing. And I'm going, what did I do? Like, why didn't I stay on the adult side where everyone was making money? And here I'm getting, a $500 commission check.
They were getting shafted and you were getting shafted.
They were right. So yeah, they were making so much money.
Patricia and I are really good friends, so I could make that. I wouldn't normally make that joke, but
exactly. Yeah, you're allowed to make jokes. So I was literally getting screwed. And I was like, it took me a hard time. And I went to my family and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm gonna get out of the industry. And it took my mom and my uncle, my brother, and they're like, you know what? Think about in the next 5 years where your path's going to go, and you're going to be able to tout that you closed Star Wars and you closed this and you closed this, and this other group, they're going to be able to throw out some porn sites, right? As their references. And that really changed the entire direction of my life. And I basically said, all right, well, I have now become the neuroscientist of the payments industry. And yet here I am working for someone else, building someone else's future, building their revenue, they're becoming rich. And I'm begging for that commission check, I'm begging for that 4% raise. And it's funny because a few weeks ago, I actually found my old reviews, where you get your reviews and it said, Patricia has done this, and this, and she's gotten a 10% raise. And I think, I think at that point I was up to maybe $48,000 a year. And yet the people who were selling the adult that had started after, they were making $250,000 a year as inside sales reps.
Yeah.
So, in one sense I did get lucky, but in another sense, it took my tenacity and me to say, I'm not going to sit here and be the one that has all of this knowledge and keep on building someone else's house. So that's what made me go on my own and start my own consulting business, basically.
And so for anyone that doesn't know, which I tend to, I think as the vast majority of people don't really have a clue how the payments industry works, and why would you, right?
Right.
I was pretty far into my internet career and I still had no idea. When Patricia, when you say you are the neuroscientist, I assume what you're talking about is, that at that early stage of internet commerce, banks probably had no idea really how to size up this type of commerce and calculate the risk and understand what the actual economic or transaction potential was. And so you were the one having to, I assume, sort of translate between the merchants and the banks and basically actually speak a language that at that time didn't even exist because they didn't know how to speak to each other. And so am I right in that's 100%. Actually what you were creating? Creating dialogue?
So if you think about Sony Music, right? So Sony Music came out and said, hey, we want to launch these fan clubs for Shakira and Little Bow Wow, remember during, so think how far back that was, right? This is when she came out. If you go to a traditional bank, think of your normal banks because internet banks didn't exist, right? That wasn't anything. These were basically like iBuild was what Stripe is today or PayPal is today. Mm-hmm. That was iBuild back then. It was an aggregator type of all-in-one solution. So when you go to a bank and you say, hey, so Sony wants to launch these fan clubs, they're going to be charging people monthly. The word subscription didn't exist. It just existed in adult. That was the only place. And now you're taking that and saying, okay, let's start putting this into mainstream stuff. And having to basically explain that to banks and educate banks and saying, guys, there's a really good opportunity here. You're used to making pennies on transactions, your basis points. How about I come to you and bring you these high margin, unique type of opportunities, and I'm going to show you how to actually board them and then also maintain them. What does exposure look like? Look at a Groupon. Think of how bizarre a Groupon model looked when it first came out.
Right.
To tell me you want to be the merchant of record. You want to let millions of customers buy vouchers from thousands of other merchants that you hold no liability on, right? So those were the kind of things where I said, this is what I'm great at doing. Yeah, I was in the internet space early on, but how many people were going to take it to the next level and say, listen, I'm not just going to come into the bank and to the merchant. I'm gonna put you two together, and I'm gonna show you why this is the perfect marriage. And I'm gonna break down for you why it's gonna be lucrative, but it's also gonna be safe and protect your bank. So that's when I say neuroscience, that's what I mean is that I decided to take what I knew and then transcend and say, all right, now let's start going globally. Let's go to Europe and start doing this. Let's go to Mauritius and start doing this. What other industries can we tackle? Now let's get into nutraceuticals. Now look at where CBD is, right?
Yes.
3 years ago, and I didn't know the first thing about CBD 3 years ago. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be the expert in it. I bought a t-shirt that said, now I know my CBDs. I learned everything there was to know about CBD, started talking to the regulators, and that's what it is. I think that's what makes an entrepreneur is knowing what you're great at and then knowing how to position yourself and making sure that you have the knowledge to back it up.
Yeah. So I appreciate you sort of naturally honing in on these high leverage, kind of game changing qualities about yourself. Cause the whole point of this show, the Millionaire Secrets, right, is like, what are those, codes that unlock all the massive potential and opportunity that's out there? And I'm always looking for that. And you're sort of naturally sharing them, which I appreciate. What I'm hearing from you to kind of run your story through my own translator is you were really good at seeing an opportunity that involved a collaboration between two parties who didn't understand each other or didn't see necessarily the value in each other, and saying, okay, I need to put these two parties together that are sort of naturally, they're like two dogs, like sniffing each other, right? Yeah. And all they're seeing are like the features and the surface level stuff. And you're like, no, I need to get in and translate to each other, between the parties, all the benefits. Correct. And all the opportunity. And we always talk about feature selling versus benefit selling. You had to get these guys selling benefits to each other when they were each trying to understand each other's features. Yep. Is that a fair way to say it?
Perfect analogy.
And the other thing I love that you said is like, and it's so obvious to you and me now. And it's, this is what I preach to people all the time is like when you're dealing with digital products, the potential margins, just the ability to earn income is generally speaking so much higher than physical products. So like you're talking about going into a bank and saying, look, I know when you think subscription, you're probably thinking newspapers or magazines, right? Well, imagine if we didn't have to chop down trees and we didn't have to distill ink and we didn't have to mail anything, and we didn't have to pay the postman, and we didn't have to put the gas in the postman's truck, and we didn't have all these physical logistics costs. And all we do is get paid for the information that gets delivered at the speed of light in the blink of an eye with the flick of a switch, and it doesn't cost costs everybody 1/1000th of a penny.
Yep.
And the bank is over there going, no, that sounds too risky. And you're the one having to go, don't be an idiot.
Right.
This sounds like the most amazing business in the world. Don't shoot yourself in the foot.
Yep. And that was, so I think being an entrepreneur and I always am watching your videos and I read your content because not only are we friends, but I think that you give the right message to people, and you're not selling vapor. You're not saying, you're going to make $1 gazillion just by selling this. You're showing people that, you have to find something. I believe you have to find something that you're passionate about, right? And even if it's not something that you're end all be all, but if you put your dedication into something and, you say you could find all the value features in it, and you could say, this is how I'm going to earn a living to do the other things that I want to do, that I am passionate about, then that's a win-win, right? That's really what life is all about. That maybe for me, payments, like I love payments, right? I live it, I breathe it because it's always changing. Funny enough, for a hyperactive brain, digital is the best thing for it, because regardless if it's payments, regardless if it's traffic, regardless if it's domain buying, whatever it is, you're getting a constant high because it's always changing. Nothing's ever the same. And so it keeps your interest, and it makes, and you see the money, you go, oh, wow. So that did happen. And I did make money off of it, So I just think that, one of my strong suits that I always kind of go is that I am able to show people the value in something. And I think that's a skill that you have to hone in on, right? It's not something, some people are natural salespeople. And that's what, I'm sure you get this a lot, where people are like, well, I'm not good at sales, right? That's one of the, well, I don't think I could do this because I'm not good at sales. It has nothing to do with sales. It has to do about being able to present value, and value is benefits. How is it going to benefit you? How is it going to benefit them? And then showing that you're able to deliver it.
Yeah. And I know, and I totally agree. And literally it was last week. I don't know, the weeks all run together, but so on one of the shows I did last week, somebody literally said that exact same thing. We deconstructed the statement, I'm not good at sales, and reduced it to its most ridiculous, fallacious conclusions that that's like saying I'm not good at walking. And it's like, well,
I was going to say that.
Walking. You're 6 months years old and you're still in a crib with a binky. Like,
right.
Get out. Let's practice this thing. Right. But so, and I will say, I just want to say, like, even for me, I've personally benefited from what you're describing, because there was a point where for you to help me be able to do the business that I do, you kind of had to go to banks and to the market and be like, listen, there's this guy and he's kind of a digital marketer, but he's kind of a digital educator, and he's kind of an entrepreneurial coach, and he's kind of a personal growth guru. And somehow you had to, and all four of those things, by the way, are things that banks look sideways at still. Right. Somehow you distilled that into a thing that now I feel like I have pretty great relationships with banks. And so my point is, I've seen your skills in action, and I know that they're magic. And like they really are like magic, because all magic actually has organic explanations. It's not actually really magic.
Right.
But okay, so let me ask you this though. At some point, one of the things that's so sexy about payments is the long-term value of the business model, right? The fact that once people set up payment processing, as long as you're in business with good businesses, they're going to run payments for years. It's residual marginal revenue for, the entirety of the history of the business. It's super sticky. Nobody ever wants to change their payments company. So once you land the business, you tend to keep the business as long as you're ethical and don't screw it up. And there's just and plus the fact that, like, listen, if you go build a payments business of $10,000 a month in residuals, there's a secondary market where you can go sell that book at a pretty big multiple, right? It's like security contracts, or, buying mortgages on the secondary market. There's like a pretty monstrous economics behind payments that makes it super lucrative, right? Did you know that when you went into it, or did you kind of figure that out as you went?
No, and that's what I talked about when I was saying how I worked for other people, right? So and this kind of pivots to something else, but when I went out on my own, right, to do the consulting business, that was a step that I had taken where I'm like, at that point, and by the way, it was kind of funny, because on the low risk side of the business, we made $10. I still remember this, $10 per signed application, right? And I'm like, back then I was like, okay, well, if I sign 100 applications, I'm adding it up with how much I'm making. I had no idea. So even for years, I never knew that there was a residual, because all I had ever known was that the management team was making bonuses on the amount of volume that I brought, right?
Right.
And then when I decided to go out on my own and do consulting, I still didn't know, because I was going into banks and saying, hey, why don't you get into this business? You could pay me a consulting fee. So at this point, I was still making one-off. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until I had gotten recruited by an actual payments company where they said, hey, I know you're on your own. Why don't you come be our VP of high-risk sales and global sales? And, this is how much you're going to make. And you're also going to make, actually, I take that back. You're going to make your salary and you're going to make bonuses, right? And I'm like, okay, that's amazing. It was 6 figures. It was a high 6-figure job. And then what was funny about it was that I had to build up a book of agents. So I had to be the person who got agents to board business. Now, if you remember, there's always been swipe accounts, right? So there's always been retail swipe merchants in this world. when those agents started coming to me and I'm like, hey, why don't you start boarding with us? And, this is what's going to be your commission. And we're talking now 9 years into the business. The agent goes, well, how much, I want to get 50% of revenue. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you'll get bonuses, right? And they're like, no, we're not. I get residual income. Like, wait, what? And so as a VP, I didn't know about this business model until these agents started showing me their commissions. And then when I had to do their reports, I started looking at their residuals, and they're making 1,000, 900, 4,000 off this account, 300 off this account. And I'm like, well, how long did they get this for? Because I knew my bonus schedule, I think, was like for 14 or 18 months. That is when I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm going out on my own. I'm starting my own company. And that's literally how I started knowing that payments was residual income. And I mean, I couldn't fathom not having a residual business ever in my entire life again.
Yeah. Once you start having residual income, you never go back. I mean, I think I can say this like without hesitation, that if somehow my entire internet entrepreneur education business was taken away, and I mean, I think I would focus on, I'd focus on a few things because I don't know how to just do one thing, but one of them would be payments.
Yeah.
Like I would go sell payments. You think about like if you're talking about the insurance business, you build up residuals and stuff. Think how much work you have to do to go in and sell a family a $500,000 term life insurance policy.
Right.
So that you can, that maybe they pay $400 a month and you get $8 a month.
Yep.
The same amount of work, you could walk into a Mexican restaurant and be like, hey, you guys are doing $600,000 a month right now. I can shave a quarter point or whatever, and you'll switch and you'll never have to worry about it again. And I'll be your guy. And it's probably an easier conversation because you don't have to the husband doesn't have to talk to the wife, and they don't have to be like, oh yeah, but my sister does it. And then you could probably make like $600 a month for as long as the restaurant stays open.
Correct.
And I mean, am I wrong? I'm not misrepresenting this business, right?
But it goes back to what we always talk about, right? Like you had in your business, you had people before me, you had agents, you had reps, you had people trying to get, because your account, you do well, your account makes money, right?
Right.
So for those agents, all they cared about was getting your account live, keeping it live. They thought you'd probably blow up in 3 months. They thought you'd have this, but as long as the problem is being a short-term thinker. And this is something else for anybody who listens to these things. You have to think of, with everything, I always thought about my long-term play. I never cared when someone would say, well, for your residual, you're going to make, there's someone else in on this deal, you're going to make 25%. All these other agents still do this to this day. They're like, well, I need to make 50%. I will take that 10, 20% all day long and split it, because I know I could probably keep it for the next 10 years versus keeping it for 3 months. And that's one of the biggest issues. So like, for example, the agents that worked on your accounts, they look at it and they were like, oh, I can make money. I don't care how I price them. I don't care about this because I want to make short-term money. I looked at it as, you have a great business model. If I know how to properly put this business together and I know how to present Jeff Lerner as this incredible entrepreneur who has built an incredible platform, and I'm going to show him, and I'm going to become your payments arm. And that's an important thing too. I will always, whether it's payments or not, I will show value to somebody. I become an integral part of their business. So outside of me just saying, great, here's credit card processing for you, I want you to leverage me, that if you ask me, if I look at your Facebook page and I go, by the way, just so you know, I know it's not my expertise, but you should really be putting these these pictures on your posts. You should really be doing this. I become such a critical part of their overall business because I provide value outside of just let me make money off of you. So, a Mexican restaurant, using that as an example in payments, yeah, I'm going to come in there. There's other people trying to come in there and make money off of them, right? I'm going to come in there. They need credit card processing. I'm going to show them not only how to reduce the rate, so I'm going to save them money, but then I'm going to become so tightly ingrained in their business that they're going to lean on me. They can call me, they can text me, they can say, hey, Patricia, what do you think about doing this really quick? We're going to have a pop-up truck. Can you get me a terminal next week? I want to be the one that suggests it. I want to be able to say, hey, by the way, you guys saw that fair that's down the road from you guys. Why don't I send you a terminal and go do a little pop-up shop and make tapas over there? Those are the things that I think separates anybody from being part of the competition. I want to be different. I want to be the unicorn. I don't want to be part of their pack. I want to be that person that when they think of payments, I want them to look at a credit card and thank me. That's it.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this, we're good friends. This is a big love fest. We can, we both value each other. So it is what it is. But like, I'm going to say this, not even really for your benefit. It's for everybody else listening. Like, Patricia has really blown me away through this relationship because, like, I mean, I know you personally. Like, you could stop working today. You could have stopped working 4 years, before I knew you, and like never wanted for anything. You have a great life. I don't want to like share too many of your personal details, but like Patricia has the life that like all the people fronting on Instagram trying to look like they have the life, like Patricia and her husband, Dave, like they actually have the life. And yet literally you've never said, Jeff, here, can you call my assistant? Jeff, can you just contact support with that? Like, you're always like, Jeff, call me. I will fix it for you. Whatever it is, I will fix it for you. And if you have a friend, I don't care if they do $20,000 a month or $20 million a month. I want to be the resource. I don't get the sense that you've changed.
No.
At any level in terms of being a scrappy, value-focused, helpful, positive person. And I mean, I just want to say that because we're looking for the millionaire secrets here. It's like, don't ever be too good to be helpful to people that are willing to pay you.
Yep.
And yet we see that online. I see people that are like, I'm like, you haven't even arrived and you're trying to act like you're too good for business. The people that have arrived are the people that never start acting too good for business.
Yep. And I'm so happy you said that because you kind of get to this position in your life where you go, am I making myself, I've questioned myself, and that's why I'm happy you said that. I have questioned myself a million times by saying, should I post that? Should I make myself too accessible? Because then people aren't going to think, that I'm big enough, or people aren't going to think that it's a weird head game, right? Like, because, Dave and I, we literally, people are like, God, I can't believe you guys are getting on the phone with me. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't we? We're in payments, right? So we're not, and you're right. If I didn't want to do this tomorrow, probably wouldn't have to do it anymore. The thing is that I think it's so important that someone, and granted, it's about bandwidth as well, right? So you only have so much bandwidth, but I will tell you this, that when someone texts me, I'll be like, I want to help you right now, but I like talking to people because I think that when you get too big and you make yourself where, like on Facebook, if you send me a Facebook message right now, I'm the one that's going to reply. You're not going to get an automated thing that goes through. People will tell me, they're like, well, don't you want to, you're just so busy and so many people. I'm like, if I have the ability to talk to everybody, I'm going to do it for as long as I possibly can because I love what I do. And I think people get too big for themselves. You know what I mean? And that loses your value. There's going to be and a few years ago, I will say this, maybe I can't remember exactly when, maybe it was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I actually got to that point, right? I was like, I didn't want to maybe I got burnt out. I don't know what it was. I may have hit complete total burnout, but I was like, you know what? I've already established myself. Let so-and-so call them. Let so-and-so call them. And I was letting other people call them. And when you're not watching your own store, that becomes a very, very, very deadly game to play because you will be forgotten. You don't realize how quickly you will get replaced. So that was a lesson that I had to learn for myself, is that I need to stay in front. I don't have to be crazy in front, but I can't be better. Like, I can't think I'm better than I am. You know what I mean? No matter how big I get. And I'm glad that you recognize that because I've never changed who I am from the day I was that 19-year-old till the day I am now. I'm the same, and everyone will tell you that I am literally the same exact person. I hope a growth. I'm sure I've had growth in my life, but I still am. I just truly want to help people, and that's never changed.
Yeah, it's like your brain has clearly changed, but it doesn't feel like your heart has changed.
No, zero.